Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and this is a particularly special day today. This is a particularly special episode. I'm joined not only by a very successful sales professional, but someone whom I've known for, I'm doing some quick math here, I think 40-ish years, which makes me actually feel a little bit old. Today's guest is actually someone I went to high school with. He and I played basketball and football together. In fact, he had the most notorious set shot, I think, in all of Fairfax County. Mr. Matt Ondrof, my good friend and old friend. How are you, sir?
Chris, good morning. You just dated us by calling it a set shot.
It was sort of a set shot, jump shot. I wasn't sure. I was like, do you call that? I mean, by the way, the prettiest shot, the most perfect backspin. I mean, if Matt, what can I say? I mean, that is, that's going to go down in history as the best shot that school ever saw.
So 2 things about our high school, Chris. In this past NCAA tournament, our high school, Paul VI in Fairfax, set a record for having 4 players in the Final Four at the same time, 4 alums in the Final Four. So I like to tell that story and then combine it with letting everybody know that when I graduated, I was the all-time leading scorer in the school's history.
That's a very good point. And you absolutely were. You were the all-time leading scorer when we graduated. Now, the fact that we're the first graduating class,
listen, details.
That's irrelevant,
Details.
Right?
First rule of sales is you only give so much information and let the client fill in the rest, fill in the blank.
Let the imagination run wild. Right. By the way, we could end the conversation right now, and that alone is worth the price of admission. I'm telling you. So, but hey, the truth, Matt Ondrof, is that you laid the foundation for those 4 young men who made it to the Final Four. So that's actually a pretty special thing.
Chris, we all did. And you and I were talking about this last week, that what we started with was absolutely the bare minimum for whatever high school athletics is and was. Our locker rooms were subpar. Our gym had a lot to be desired. I'm still not convinced it was a regulation gym.
That's the only way some of us could get up and down the floor. I'm pretty convinced.
Right.
So Matt,
we had less.
What's that?
I said we had less than to work with, but we very quickly became competitive because, guys like you and I, we might have not have been the best athletes in Fairfax County, but we had a lot of drive, we had a lot of heart, and made a good account of ourselves over those first couple of years.
Well, and that's really the part of the foundation of this conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about sports and how some of the things that we learn in sports carries over into sales. We're going to talk a little bit about how, because you've had an incredibly successful career in more of a B2C sales role and sales profession. I, of course, am more in the B2B, and a lot of the folks that I work with are B2B. So I want to dig into what are some of the lessons that we can take, from what you've learned in your experience in that B2C world. But before we get into it too deep, Matt, I do want to give you a chance to the opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit more broadly. Here's what I remember. For as long as I knew you, you were going to be a high school teacher and a basketball coach.
That's it.
And you went to college to do that.
Right.
And now here you are, some 35, let's say plus years later, you're director of sales with the Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance Company. Do I have that right?
That's it. Yeah.
Excellent. You've got some 200 plus sales professionals in your organization looking to you for leadership. Talk a little bit about that journey and how you went from, coaching basketball to now running a 200-person sales organization.
So, what's just eerie to me is how similar those 2 jobs are. You're right. I did. From the time you and I met in ninth or 10th grade, I had my sights set on teaching high school and coaching high school basketball. And I did. That's what I came out of school and spent 10 years doing. The 90s, that was, before high school kids had cell phones. I got to teach. I don't know if I can do it today.
You dodged that bullet.
I did. So, yeah. And, I tell a lot of people that the greatest first job you can have out of college, if you really are thinking long-term and specifically a sales career, and if you think you're good at sales, wake up at 6:30 in the morning, be in front of 33 teenagers at 7:15 who are staring at you, wanting to be entertained. And if you think you can sell them Shakespeare at 7:15 in the morning on a Tuesday. And so I didn't realize that in that progression, in those years of teaching high school, I was learning how to sell. I was learning how to connect with people. I was learning how to gain buy-in. I was learning how to explain the WIFM, right? Because high school teenagers don't want to do anything unless they think there's something's in it for them, or there's some immediate return. They're an instant gratification stage of life. So between the classroom and then coaching and building a basketball program, and I was girls basketball, switched over from the guys to the girls. You realize then you're also combining all of those leadership principles and what it means to build a team. So when I took all of that and left education and went into the insurance world, it was amazing. I didn't realize almost what an MBA in sales leadership I had gotten from the classroom and from the basketball court.
Yeah, it's amazing. By the way, you use the term WIFM, and I know what you mean, but for our guests and anybody who may be catching this after the fact, do you care to elaborate on WIFM?
Sure. It is an acronym that stands for What's in It for Me. WIFM. What is in it for me? And, at the core of every transaction, every sales-based transaction, there's a WIFM. We know on our side of the table what the WIFM is for us, right? We've got a product to move, or we've got an account to close. And, you have to take yourself out of your seat and put yourself in the seat of the client and say, what's in it for them? In the B2C side, particularly in the insurance side, the landscape has changed so drastically to a do-it-yourself culture. When I started, I was a State Farm agent almost 20 years ago. The online competitors were few and almost irrelevant. And literally from the moment I started until now, the size at which they've grown and the speed which they have come to take on the marketplace has changed what we do in what I'm in what's called the face-to-face arena. And, so we've had to combat that do-it-yourself capacity, concept for the client. And it really has driven home the idea of WIFM. Why should they work with an individual agent? Why shouldn't they go to Progressive and do it themselves?
Yeah. No, and, two of the words that you used very early on were connect and then getting buy-in. Yeah. So let's unpack that a little bit. Knowing that you're facing stiff competition from the do-it-yourself digital world, and knowing that you've got to prove the WIFM, how do you connect? How do you get that buy-in?
Yeah, and so that what's changed the sales model that we teach is where if you think about 20, 30, 40 years ago, the idea of an insurance agent was one of an expert, one who sit down, I will put the pieces of paper in front of you, you sign here, and on we go. There was no other way to do it. And what we've had to evolve into is being a thought partner, is, hey, let us help you in the journey of your financial life. As you start to think about the risks that you've got in your personal assets and in your financial life, let us help you think through. Let us ask, it's the old, I see 1,000 people a day, so I do this for a living. You think about insurance in your financial life once a month, once a quarter. let me ask you the right questions. Let me guide you. One of the famous phrases we teach in our sales world here is the recommendations are mine, the decisions are yours. So that's we teach a consultative sales approach. Now, I don't know if that applies in the B2B world. I would think it would, Chris.
Oh, Matt, it so does. And again, I'm going to double click on two of the things you just said because they're powerful words. The first is this notion of thought partners, right? Is that, and it's interesting. I mean, you're right. Even in software sales, I mean, 10, 15 years ago, software sales professionals knew more than the client and were expected to know more than the client. Now, our customers have done a tremendous amount of research typically before they want. And when they do, by the way, when they do want to talk to a sales professional, they are looking for people that can help them make those decisions. So I love that term, the thought partner. And this notion of the recommendation is ours, the decision is yours. If I wish more people would take that approach because it respects everyone's right to choose for themselves. Right. And it does create that trusted environment, right? That trusted partnership. Now, do you find that customers are still at times looking for your people to be experts in the field?
Yeah, and what's funny is we see a lot of folks who dabble in the self-service world in that space, and they oftentimes will come back because I think it's one of those sounds better than it is. Yeah. And I'm very, very attuned to the insurance marketplace advertising and what other companies' go-to-market strategy is. Yeah. And a lot of it, if you listen, Progressive, for example, has a name your price tool. Right. Well, that's absolutely scary to me as somebody who's been in this business 20 years. Is imagine if in software sales you said, "Hey, name your price." All right, $5. Well, okay. In the insurance world, we can lower your premium anytime we want. But guess what? We're going to lower coverages. We're going to expand your risk. And that may be the absolute worst thing in the world for us to do. Yeah. So, and when you're doing it without counsel, when you're doing it literally in a do-it-yourself environment, you get what you get is the old phrase. And we find a lot of folks come back to us. The number one reason people change insurance companies, you would think it would be advertising when you pay attention to how much insurance advertising there is. It's not. It's a poor claims experience, which makes sense. That's what people are buying, right? I say all the time, I wish I sold TVs and cars because then people would leave with something. In the world I live in, you give me money and you get a handshake from me. Right. It's a promise. And when that promise is not fulfilled, what did I just spend all that money for? I'm going to go somewhere else. So that's the reason people leave. And we find a lot of people who try the self-service, to try the do-it-yourself, and end up back on our side of the street. Yeah. Yeah.
Matt, let me pause our own or push our own pause button here, folks. I'm speaking with Matt Ondrof, happens to be a high school classmate and teammate of mine. He's a director. He's the director of sales with I want to make sure I get it right, with the Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance Company. He's got over 200 sellers working in his organization that he oversees. And we're talking about how do B2C and B2B align. If you have any questions or comments for Matt or myself, or just care to say hello, please feel free to do so. Matt, let's take this a half step further. One of the things that we talk about a lot in the B2B world is discovery and probing and asking questions and getting a better. I've got to believe that's an important part of your sales process. Talk a little bit about some of the discovery that you would do or your folks would do, maybe with someone who they're reaching out to or reaching out to them.
Yeah, it's needs-based selling. It's needs-based analysis, and that's what the best folks do. It's how you show value as the professional on this side of the table. Those discovery questions are really, I always liken it to if you enjoy the game Price is Right. I enjoy it to Plinko. Every needs-based question you ask, every discovery question is going to take you in a different direction with that client. So if I say to you, Chris, we're going to talk about all the things that are important to you, and we typically focus in 4 areas: family, occupation, recreation, and money. Because in the insurance world, those are the 4 things we're protecting. We're here to protect your family. If something were to happen to you, either loss of income or loss of life, we're here to protect your occupation, short-term disability, long-term disability, the things that may prevent you from earning your full income. We always want to talk about recreation because, we work to live, right? We hopefully don't live to work. So, you and I were just chatting before we started about things that we like to do. And as we get a little bit older, some of them are a little more physically painful than they used to be, but we all want the quality of life. So, why are we protecting all these things? And of course, we got to talk about the money, because that informs us on the right recommendation. So those discovery conversations have to happen so that I can present the right solution to you or make the right recommendation that is ultimately your choice. And without those discovery questions, I would think of us as order takers. Why? We can do it robotically, electronically. It's that human interaction and connection, that discovery that says, what is important to you, right? Why? I mean, why are we doing what we're doing? And in tech sales, I still have to imagine that what's important to you as a company or organization or division leader, whoever you're speaking with, has to be core to the sale.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's absolutely critical. What I love about what you just shared, and what were the 4 were family, occupation, recreation, and money. What, and what I love about those 4 is that those are things that I'm guessing all people are concerned about to some degree or another. And it's something that I, as the consumer, is concerned about, right? You've translated what you do in terms of what it means to me. And honestly, all the B2B sellers out there, if we could just narrow it down to things like, well, we're here to save you time. We're here to save you money. We're here to increase job security, job satisfaction, employee morale, culture, right? If we could narrow it down to those fundamental things and focus there, we'd be so much better off, right? Now, let me ask you this, Matt, because we run into this a lot when we want to do, or, of course, we want to do some discovery. It's beneficial to us, right? We run into people who may be a little bit unreceptive or closed off. Like, you're just asking me questions so you can, find a way in. Do you guys run into that from time to time?
Absolutely. Because, and part of that do-it-yourself, kind of world we live in today says, why are you asking me that? And the answer that we teach and that we've developed over the years is pretty simple. I always use the analogy of going to see the doctor. The doctor is going to ask you uncomfortable questions. And, at our age, we get some super uncomfortable questions. But I hope we wouldn't say to the doctor, why are you asking me that? He's asking that so that he can make a proper diagnosis. Yeah. And in sales, it's the same thing. If I am truly a needs-based seller, if I'm playing the Plinko game where whatever answers you give me are going to guide where I go, then the ultimate recommendation I'm going to give you has to be fully formed in your information. Otherwise, I'm just imposing. I'm just cookie cutter imposing on you. Hey, here's package C. You look like a package C guy.
Yeah.
No. It's the human connection. It's the human interaction of, let me understand you, what's important to you, so that I can then put something in front of you. And hey, what I put in front of you, you may say that's wildly not what I meant. Okay, circle back.
Yeah.
Redo.
Yeah. No, and it's so true. I mean, it brings me back to this notion of, look, the recommendation is ours, but the decision is yours. I think the more we not only iterate that, but demonstrate that in the way we speak, right? So that they don't feel like we're forcing things on them, and they sincerely feel as though, like, wow, they really do have my better interests in mind, which makes them more comfortable to open up. So I can, now you've used,
hold on. Let me touch on that, because one of the most valuable sales tips I ever got, that I have taken with me and embedded into my people, is in line with what you just said. And it was this. You know, if you ever watch enough lawyer shows, the first rule of being a lawyer is never ask a question you don't know the answer to. What I was taught when I was starting out my sales career is only ask questions from a place of genuine curiosity. Because it's what you just said. It's how you come across as authentic, is if you are genuinely curious and interested. No, seriously, Chris, tell me about your company. How are you guys doing right now? What state are you in? What are the challenges you're having? If you're asking from a place of genuine curiosity, if it comes across that way, you will get a better reception, and you'll get an actual genuine dialogue, as opposed to, the client feeling like they're at a deposition and you're just firing away questions.
I mean, Matt, that's so well said. And in fact, I love your emphasis on the term genuine curiosity.
Right.
You can't fake this stuff. Right. I mean, people, one of the things that we like to say, and you obviously, our good friend, Scott Cassidy, and we do some work with Aslan training and development. And, one of the things that we like to say is motive is transparent.
It is.
People are going to see through it. Like if you aren't sincerely curious, if you aren't sincerely trying to do what's in their best interest, it comes through. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And
there's an old saying by one of the greatest salesmen in the history of humankind, George Foreman. Man sold a lot of grills. He said, "You cannot go door to door selling Giorgio if you smell like Old Spice." Think about that. It's the authenticity of the thing. If you're asking general questions from a place of genuine curiosity, you're going to come across as authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and by the way, what goes with that is believing in the product. Right. So you have to believe in the product you sell. You have to believe in the service you sell. You have to believe in the significance of the problem that you solve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because again, it can't be faked.
No, it can't. It can't. And many have tried, and they don't typically end up doing very well.
Yeah. Yeah. You've used the term human nature on more than one occasion, and I know when you and I chatted a week or so ago, and I think the first time you and I sort of said, what are the parallels between B2B and B2C? I know the first word that came to mind for you was people. Let's pick apart that a little bit further. I love to say that people buy from people, but what does that mean to you in your world, in your environment?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit, that we're in the relationship business. We sell no tangible product. People give us money and their trust. And so if you don't see how you're in the people business, you're in the relationship business, then you need to go sell cars or sell something else. And because this is, just the way that the insurance industry and business is set up, it is a long game. I got a buddy that's a realtor, and I always tell him, "Hey, you sell 3 houses a year, you're done." In my world, you got to sell 3 people a day, kind of thing. It's just the small, but what you're doing is you're building the relationship for the future. So you and I do business now, complete transparency in how my industry works. My commissions are very, very small. I need to play the law of large numbers, and I need you to stay with me for the next 20 years. So that people aspect, I need to know you, your family, your kids, your dog. And when your kids get driver's license, I need to insure them. And I need it to be that. It cannot be a transaction. It cannot be a one and done. I can't have you leave my office and say, I'm never going to see that guy again.
Yeah.
I always, like to tell people, hey, I'm like your dentist. You don't want to see me, but you can see me once or twice a year, and we're going to do the deep clean and maybe it's a little uncomfortable, but it's for your own good.
Yeah.
And you just kind of got to get in the habit. And as life changes and as things change, we'll adapt. But we're in the relationship, Chris. It's you and me, and I'm your guy. I'll be making the recommendations, use my expertise. Decisions are yours, but we're going to go through this thing together.
Yeah. And I just, again, I just love that whole notion of the idea of it's a relationship, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And something you mentioned, that look, Chris, when a customer signs up, they're not leaving with a product in hand. They're leaving with a handshake, maybe a folder, right? with,
Yeah.
with some
collateral,
information, right? But honestly, and so it's really, it's built on trust. It's built on trust and a belief that this is in their best interest.
Yeah.
And really, when I think about our profession being B2B software sales, I mean, yes, the customers that we work with, they may get a new software platform to use, and they have some new process and quote some new tools. But the reality is, it's also largely based on a promise of a business benefit downstream, right? So
Right.
I actually feel like this applies a great deal. By the way, we do have a question from Hitesh. Hitesh, it's nice to see you. Thanks for joining. When do you stop pursuing a client? And I don't know if that's in the context of the pre-sale or the post-sale, but Matt, when you see Hitesh, thanks for the question.
Hitesh, that's a great question. And I wish my 216 folks were on this call, on this video chat, because they would all give you the answer that I am famous for. I should get a t-shirt, because I use this phrase all the time. No means not right now. No means not right now. If you are approaching the prospect from a place of genuine curiosity, is this somebody that what I do can help? If you are coming to it from a place of a relationship being the ultimate goal, that we're going to do business together for a long time, then you will come across as authentic. You'll be asking good questions. It may not be the right time for them. So that's why I use this phrase, no means not right now. They may not be in a position in their business, in their life, where what you're talking about is the right fit for them. They may be happy with the current provider that they're with. But in my world, poor claims experience means I'm going to put my shopping hat. I'm going to be top of mind. I'm going to be first in line when they put that shopping hat on. I got to imagine in B2C, it's the same thing. They've got the software they're happy with. They've worked with somebody in the past. But as soon as something goes wrong, and invariably it does, you need to be top of mind. You need to be first of mind. So when you say pursue, that can be a little bit of a loaded word. I think of it as, even though we didn't transact business today, we started down the road of relationship, and it's just, hey, I'll see you in 9 months. I'll check in again. And, I don't know, Chris, you help me out. Is that
I mean, Matt, I gotta say, and look, folks, I always say these conversations are unrehearsed and unscripted and unpredictable for a reason. I mean, no truer words have ever been spoken. I mean, and not only do I know this in the software world, I now run a training business, and I tell all the folks that attend my workshops, I have two jobs, right? My first job is running workshops like the one I'm working, doing in that moment. My second job is selling workshops, right? And I can't tell you how many times to your point, I've engaged with a sales leader, and he or she, we just got to a point where it just felt like it wasn't the right time. And on at least 3 or 4 occasions, and by the way, we always leave on good terms, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm happy for you. It sounds like everything's okay. Or maybe you've made a decision to go elsewhere. Let's just stay in touch. Maybe 8 or 9 months later, to the point, I will circle back and just say, hey, just wanted to say hello and see how things are going. And at least 2 or 3 occasions this year, I've had that individual say, actually, Chris, it's really good to hear from you. I know we didn't do anything last year, but we might want to do something this year. And I've done a couple workshops. And by the way, it was the right time for them, right? So no, it's...
Chris, I said earlier that we're in the people business. If you truly believe that, then that's the goal, is to meet more people, connect with more people. The end result of you sign a contract, you exchange money, you provide a service, that's that's just, icing on the cake, whatever you want to say. It's the relationship that you're in pursuit of.
Absolutely.
And once again, if you try to fake it, you will fail.
Exactly. Well, and look, I mean, and this is a good segue because we're going to talk a little bit more about sports, but we need to be completely and totally at peace with the fact that not everybody we talk to is going to decide to do business with us, and that's okay, right? I think it's the people that feel like they need to close everything they touch, right? Or it's somehow, like
it's a failure on your part.
Exactly.
As a salesperson, if you didn't close that one or that one got away, air quotes, it's nope.
It's absolutely not. By the way, Hitesh says my question is from the pre-sales perspective, and Hitesh, when I think of it from the pre-sales perspective, honestly, I think it's very, very similar. I think too many times, and Matt, when we say pre-sales, we're talking about like the sales engineer, right? That either is the expert, does the demo, right? I think too many times we get so enamored with our products that we're almost offended that they didn't choose our product or it wasn't right. And we need to be very much at peace with the fact that, look, no may mean not at this time. Maybe it just wasn't a good fit, and that's okay too. Right.
I think the best salespeople are what I would call lifelong learners, meaning they're always learning about their industry, their product. And so, one of the things we do is kind of a let me learn from you prospecting approach is what's going on with you. You tell me about, I'm the salesperson, but hey, what software are you using? The thing I teach is you never want to talk poorly about a competitor. Course. And, I think your natural instinct to try to solve a problem they have is to ask them, what don't you like about your current situation? And I actually teach the opposite, which is tell me what you do like, because people will be more apt to buy from a place of positivity of what could be than they will from a place of negativity and what's not working, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes well, and frankly, they may be less inclined to tell you, particularly early on, if you haven't built a relationship, they'd be less inclined to tell you what's not working and what they don't like. But if you ask them what they like, they may be very happy to, well, it does this and it does this and it does this. Well, gee, it sounds like there's nothing not to like. Well, I didn't say that now. Right? Like now they'll start telling you, like I didn't say it's perfect. Yeah. Really,
the best follow-up to that, and I think you're right there. The best follow-up that I have is when I say, tell me what you like about your current situation, is once they tell you, you then follow it up with almost like taking it to the next level, which actually gets them to tell you what's wrong, is to say, all right, like you said, oh my God, that sounds awesome. I didn't know that did that, whatever. Hey, if you had a magic wand, what else could it do? Or what else would you want your current situation to be? And that's when they tell you where the gap is.
Yeah. I love that. Matt, let me push our pause button again, folks. I'm talking to Matt Ondrof. He's the director of sales with the Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance Company. I'm going to get that right one of these times without having to look at my notes. He's a sales director of over 200 sales professionals. Happens to be a buddy of mine from high school, and we played sports together. So Matt, and by the way, if any of you have any other questions, anybody else wants to say hello, please, I invite you to do so. Matt, let's talk a little bit about sports, because we were talking about, we were first, we literally opened the high school, the Paul VI High School in Fairfax City in 1983. I know I'm dating ourselves right now, but as sophomores, we literally walked through those doors for the very first time. And we had, I think asbestos, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but, I think there was insulation falling down in the locker room. And, we were sort of, learning in the school of hard knocks, as they say. Yeah. So, not only was our experience, it was great. Let's be honest. It was a fabulous experience. You and I played in the first ever basketball victory. You and I played in the first ever football victory. I know you played in the first baseball victory. I didn't play baseball. But
We
what
did.
are some of the lessons do you think that and really anybody that plays sports can carry with them into sales?
Oh, Chris, it's almost like I wish every single salesperson could go back in a time machine, and have participated in something competitive like sports. The lessons are so deep and so similar.
Mm,
Um, when I think I've probably worked with almost 1,500 salespeople over my career, and if I were to say what's the one thing that causes somebody to exit the industry or not have the success that we would want for them, it's this: they struggle with failure. They struggle with the
mm,
concept of no, of not being successful in that moment, in that sale, in that conversation, and what have you. And when you think about what sales sort of ingrains in you, if you did it long enough and kind of progress to any kind of level, all you deal with in sports is failure. Uh,
yeah.
and it's, imagine thinking about salespeople you've worked with who couldn't deal with no, couldn't deal with failure and exit the industry. Imagine them on the basketball court. Imagine them on the football field. They'd get
Yeah.
hit one time and they'd get up and walk off and go sit on the bench. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? They'd get beat playing defense in basketball. Their guy would score and they would just turn around and leave.
Yeah.
And sports teaches you so quickly and so early of you have to scrub it and you have to move on to the next play. The
Yeah.
whistle's going to blow. The ball is going to come down. So the guy's going to pitch it at you again. What's next? I swung and I missed. Great. In 4 seconds, he's going to throw it at me again. And I
Yeah.
have to mentally reset. And you also learn very quickly to learn and adapt,
Yeah.
which is what sales is all about. I mean, how many times have you been in the middle of a sales conversation that maybe was starting to go not well, and you've got to adapt and change and make a decision and try something else, and attempt to save the conversation or save the sale. And sports teaches you all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, it's not just sports, it's anything competitive. But we do need to learn to fail. We need to learn that, look, every time you step up to the plate, the ball's not going over the fence, and that's not even my sport, right? I mean, Lord no, and I wasn't a big shooter in basketball. I took a few shots, but it was because I wasn't a very good shooter and I was afraid to shoot. But I took my shots, right? And Lord knows I got knocked down in football, right? And to your point, the whistle blows, you pick yourself back up, you get back in the huddle, and you make and you do have to make up your mind. Am I going to get pushed around by the guy, over top of me? Or am I going to start fighting back, right? Am I going to do something different, right? Between plays, between games. There's another part of it, I think, for me anyways, and that's the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And sort of the quote, going into battle with your fellow teammate, with your fellow colleague. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are some of the things that you think we carry forward with us into the sales world in that regard?
Well, you're absolutely right. The idea of being a part of a team and being part of something bigger than just you. Think about some of the things we've already just been talking about. When I say in my side of sales, I'm making a promise, I'm not the one delivering it. There's a claims team right next door to me, and they are the ones delivering on the promise, and I have to understand what my role is here, and I have to have good relationships with those folks and rely on them. You could have been the best offensive lineman Paul the Sixth had ever seen, but if there wasn't a quarterback handling the ball and a guy running it and a defense on the other side, doesn't matter. You did your part well, but the team wasn't successful. And in business and in sales, we get the spotlight a lot. It's always funny that when the company's doing well, no one ever comes knocking on your door. As soon as revenue drops a little bit, everybody wants to know what salespeople are up to.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's understanding our role, and if sports has taught us nothing, it's the idea of what is my interplay with my teammates? What I'm doing if impacting them, helping them be successful? I mean, you remember, we played basketball together. Yeah, I mean, as I've been told, I did like to shoot a little bit.
You put the ball up a time or two.
Yeah, yeah. When I walked in the gym, I was open. But I also liked to. I mean, there was nothing better than a good pass that resulted in a basket for a teammate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's kind of the beauty of basketball is it is such an interwoven fabric of teamwork.
Yeah.
And I really think sales, I mean, unless you are out by yourself, selling your own, making your product, selling your product, servicing your product.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, you're part of a team.
Sales is a team sport, as I like to say, especially in the B2B, the software, B2B and enterprise sales role. And this is a question I was going to ask you. Do your people out in the field, do they ever have to bring in maybe an expert from the claims team or an expert from, one of the teams?
All the time.
They do. Yeah.
All the time. Yeah. In the insurance business, once you have gained a client, you then really become the quarterback and you're just directing, calling the plays. It's everybody else is really the one who's in play. It's billing, it's claims, it's underwriting. It's all the different divisions of an insurance company have to then go to work and you're conducting it. You're not the one executing, you're the one conducting. So very similar, I'm sure, on your side of the street, which is once you make the sale, it then becomes everyone else goes to work, right?
Yeah.
But you just created the work for everybody else by bringing in the client.
Yeah. Yeah, but you need to maintain those relationships internally just as much as you need to maintain the relationship with the client.
Agreed.
Right? Mm-hmm. So Matt, at what point in your career, so you were a teacher, you were a basketball coach for about 10 years, right? Decided that, and I know when we talked, the other day, you looked around and realized you had a couple kids and, maybe there were some, other ways to make a living.
Yep.
You got into sales.
Yep.
At what point did you make the move into management? And what were some of the biggest first surprises moving into a management role?
So, I actually was only an individual sales agent for 3 years and then went into sales leadership. You know what it was for me, Chris? It's how quickly I realized in education, I was teaching high school English and coaching basketball. And when I got into sales, as I kind of saw what my sales manager was doing and the infrastructure at the organization, I realized how quickly all they were doing was teaching insurance or teaching sales and, coaching sales. And I said, well, isn't that what I was? Okay. And just sort of light bulb went off in my head, and if you remember back to when we played together, I was always more of a coach than a player back then too. I think I told you that our old high school basketball coach put a couple of videos up on YouTube of us playing basketball in 1985, black and white, of course. And I was watching them a little while ago and I realized, oh my God, every dead ball, I'm going up to the referee, I'm going over to our coach, I'm going and grabbing a player, a fellow teammate, and I was like, I'm coaching while I'm playing. Yeah. And that just natural instinct is what led me very quickly to say, it's not that I want to be in management. I want to be in leadership. There's two different things in my mind. I don't know for you. I always use the phrase, you manage things, but you lead people. And I was more interested. I didn't want to manage things. I didn't want lists and that kind of thing. I wanted to develop people. I wanted to see other people be successful. Yeah. And so I naturally just, kind of gravitated to sales leadership and, haven't looked back since.
It's really impressive, Matt, I have to say. And the truth is that a lot of people, and I'm sure you've seen it, a number of people who move from, quote, the individual contributor role into management struggle a great deal because, a lot of them, certainly sort of in my world, the sales engineer role, they try to become sort of like the superpower sales engineer. Right. But the fact that you recognize very quickly that that's really where you wanted to be. So because you could teach and you could coach and you could develop others.
And that's the key. And where a lot of individual contributors struggle who try to get into sales leadership is that, the competencies that make an individual salesperson so good don't translate to leadership, right? Because it's a sort of type A, in it to win it. I mean, all the competencies that good salespeople have.
Absolutely.
And that can't be what sales leadership is about. Getting back to sports for a second, one of the things I learned quickly as a coach is when we win, it's my players. When we lose, it's me. And same thing in sales leadership. When an individual person is successful, when a team or a region is successful, it's them. It's their hard work. It's them executing and doing the proper things. When they're not successful, it's my job to figure out what needs to change, what help do they need, what's not getting done, what roadblocks can I clear, what are they not getting or doing, and that mentality is not a me first mentality. And in sales leadership, I'm sure there are examples that contradict what I'm saying. You can think of VP of sales in this organization or that organization. That's Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen Ross, but it's rare. It's rare.
That's really, really good, Matt. Again, I'm going to double click. So when the team wins, it's the team, right? They get the credit. If we lose, if we fail, if we're struggling, that's on me. And now I got to figure out how. I mean, it's just such a great attitude, a great mentality. By the way, Alvin Reyes, who attends and these on the regular, says please share the link. So I may have to have you send me the link to those.
Alvin, I'll tell you this: if you've seen the movie Hoosiers, you've seen it. That's about what it looks like, because our gym looks about that small.
It's true. It's true.
And Chris, I think you show up in a couple of them because the camera person was pretty active looking around, and I think you and a couple of our classmates are in there.
I don't even think I've seen that. I saw some football, but I don't know if I've seen some basketball. So I may have to dig those up.
Your haircut is suspect back then.
I'm sure it was sort of mullet like. If I had to guess, I think we all had something mullet. And folks, the interesting thing about our Matt and I are obviously reflecting about our time in high school. We did have a very unique high school experience because we were part of the class that literally opened the school. The year the school was founded, there was a freshman class and a sophomore class, and we entered as sophomores. And then 3 years later, we were the first graduating class. So we literally did play on the first football team, the first basketball team. In Matt's case, he played on the first baseball team. So yeah, I mean, and obviously we have some very fond memories going back there. Matt, I don't know if you can believe it, but we've actually been at this almost 50 minutes. So the time does tend to go by quickly. There is one more thing that I wanted to touch on, and then I've got a little lightning round that I'll ask you, or a little lightning round that we'll do. But you mentioned sort of the typical sales professional, right?
Right.
Type A, high energy, right? And I know for some sales leaders, it can be difficult to quote lead the high performers, right? And who's the famous Lakers coach who had to manage
Phil Jackson.
Thank you. Phil Jackson was notorious for being able to manage big personalities. Yeah. Have you learned a thing or two on your journey as to how to best to manage some of the bigger personalities?
Yes, I have some scar tissue to prove it. They're built different, Chris. I know we say that. Michael Jordan is built different than everybody, so Phil Jackson had to kind of figure out how to get it done. And it's such a fine line between holding them accountable versus putting them on a pedestal, of treating them different versus getting them what they need. Yeah. And I wish there was a formula or a direct answer. I think the simplest thing I can say is you have to invest in the relationship, because think about those top performers. Their time is limited. Their time is valuable. They're going 100 miles an hour. And if you've put enough time in over an appropriate amount of time to where they will trust you, then I think you can then begin to show value. And, unfortunately, many of them don't have any trust in you or any time for you until they need something done or what have you. And you just, there's a small window in there, that you have to find between just being collaborative and supportive and helpful and making sure they understand, they still work for an organization, still work for you, still have certain requirements and things that need to be done. And you've got to find that tight space.
Well, and again, your words are so powerful. Invest in the relationship. Not unlike investing in the relationship with our prospects and our customers.
Right.
And you used the magical word again, which is trust. Right. We need to demonstrate. We need to build trust, and we do so by demonstrating that. Look, we're here to support, to lead, to help. Right. We're here for. Now, we also have a responsibility to the organization. Right. We also have a responsibility to oversee a team and to make sure we're all following certain rules and doing certain things. Right. So it's, to your point, it's a balancing act.
It is. And, your organizations don't have the success they have without these folks. I'm sure your sales charts look like mine do. Of the 200 and plus, 20 of them produce about half the business. It's just the way it is. And you every time you interview and recruit, you're hoping that's who walks through the door. So, they're your greatest headache half the time, but where would you be without them?
Yeah. No, it's great. Well, and honestly, those are probably the precise words that basketball coaches say about either their leading scorers or their leading rebounders or what have you. Right. So again,
I'm sure Coach Grimm had a few of those things to say about me back then.
We're going to have to figure out a way to send the link of this recording to Coach Grimm.
Edit that part out. I love you, Coach.
Yeah, we got to give a shout out to Coach Grimm and Coach. Hopefully you appreciate this conversation. Matt, you've been so unbelievably gracious with your time. It's funny. I mentioned to our friend Scott Cassidy, I don't know, a week or two ago. In fact, I think when I saw him at the reunion, that you had reached out and that you're going to be on the show. And his first reaction was like, "Why is Matt going to be on your show? He's like in insurance sales or something." I said, sales is sales, man.
Sales is sales, baby.
And there are things that we can learn. And I have to say, sticking with the sports analogies, Matt, you have hit that ball out of the park. So
thank you.
Just a few more questions in sort of lightning round. Now, you've already shared countless tips and words of advice. So I hope you haven't, run, hit the bottom of the well yet. But
okay.
My first of three questions is if someone were to turn to you and say, "Gee, Matt, I just got, my first job in sales," any words of advice and, maybe anything that you haven't touched on yet?
Oh yeah. My first thing is eat well, sleep well, drink a lot of water. Because sales is a full contact sport. And if this is your first sales job, I don't think you're prepared for sort of the mental and physical toll that sales takes on you. It's this all day, every day. And it's that sort of emotional strength that you've got to have. Think about all the things we've talked about, that where about authentically connecting with people, asking questions from a place of curiosity. That's emotionally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. The chiropractor should be your third on your speed dial, because I don't think people understand when they get into a career in sales what it really entails. They may have seen it, or TV has glorified it, or they know somebody who does well at it, makes very good money, and they go, "I can do that." Well, hopefully you can, but that first bit. My wife always loves to tell the joke that when I started in sales, I slept in the fetal position for 3 months. You're done at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really well said. It is a full contact
Contact sport.
sport, and I'm glad you mentioned the emotional energy, because it is a tremendous amount of emotional energy, particularly because we naturally default to self, right? We naturally default to and it doesn't mean we're bad people, but we naturally default to self-centered motives, and yet to be an effective sales professional, we need to put our self-centered motives secondary, right? We need to check our ego at the door, and it takes an emotional energy to always put other people forward, and it can be growing. Okay, question number 2. You've touched on a number of pieces of advice that you've received over the years, and by the way, one of the ones that you mentioned, no means not at this time. That's gonna stick with me. Any other words of advice that you yourself have received on the journey that maybe we haven't touched on?
Yeah, and it sort of ties into what we were just saying. But I remember when I started, I had a really good month, maybe fourth, fifth month in, and you know me well enough to know I was walking around thinking I was somebody,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I hit a couple of threes and watch out. So I had a really good sales month, and my sales manager at the time, Kevin Gross, State Farm guy, he comes in and sits down and just kind of lets me go and lets me talk and act like I was somebody. And he said, Matt, listen, you are never as good as your best month, so relax. But then he followed up with, and you're never as bad as your worst month. And it's part of that emotional strength that you've got to have, which is sales is a absolute roller coaster. And as much sales process and sales engineering as we all put into this business, there is an element of, I don't want to use the word luck because you make your own luck, but there's a randomness to it that we've all experienced, where you will make 50 phone calls and get 50 no's, and it's just, and you're following up with people you thought were slam dunks, and it just seems like nothing can happen. And then other times you've got the magic finger, the magic touch, and it just understanding that sort of randomness exists, and you can't let it kill you, and you do need to kind of calm down a little bit when you're on a roll. That just understanding that, hey, love it while you got it, but and when you're in the down part, know that the roll's coming.
Yeah.
If you follow the process and stick with the fundamentals and do the thing the right way, that in the end, when you pull back and look at it, it all kind of played itself out, and you got to where you needed to get. But man, in the moment, if you let yourself let the current kind of smack you in the face, you'll never make it.
Such powerful words. You're never as good as your best day, and you're never as bad as your worst day.
Yeah,
it's very, very true. Matt, the landing gear is out, and the runway is in sight, my friend. We're going to land this plane. I do have one more question for you. If you could ask me one question, what might that be?
So I think it would be this. It would be, what is it that you see in people when you first meet them who are in a sales position, sales career? What is it you're looking for as a kind of a click to say, oh, this person knows what they're doing. This person is successful in this business or going to be successful. What are those one or two sort of competencies or traits or characteristics that you look for?
Really good question. I think the first thing, very similar to what we've been talking about, is what we like, we being, Aslan Training and the folks that I work with, what we like to call an other-centered sort of mentality, right? An other-centered approach, meaning I am more interested in helping you, in learning about you and understanding you, than I am in pushing anything on you. So I think that's sort of the first thing, right? Is have they developed that ability to be less naturally self-centered?
Right.
I think the second thing that comes to mind, Matt, is, do you have a sense of confidence and sort of, self security about you, whether I'm convinced about you and your solution or not. Right? Like, does your confidence only come from your ability to convince me, or are you as convicted about your solution and what you have to offer, whether I'm buying in or not? And are you at peace with the fact that I may not be? To me, when I get the sense that, look, this person is confident regardless of whether I'm, sort of drinking the Kool-Aid or buying in or not, right? Then all of a sudden you're like, okay, there's some substance there. If that does that resonate, Matt?
Oh, totally. You do run into people that run hot when the client's hot, run cold when they're cold, and the pilot light's got to be lit at all times.
That's incredibly well said.
And it's back to that sort of emotional strength. If you are letting yourself flow with the ups and downs of the people you talk to every day, good luck.
Exactly. And we've all met those people. We've all met those people that seem so determined to convince others that they're likable, that they're funny, that and they're hanging so tightly, they're clinging so tightly to other people's opinions of them, right? That, to me, that's very much a red flag. And those people that just have a sense of calm and confidence about them, and as I said, an other-centeredness. And we use the term authenticity. I think people who have that sort of center, confidence or grounded confidence about them come across authentic because there's nothing to hide. So those are things.
Yeah, no, that's it. And it's funny that, and tell Scott Cassidy, sales is sales, because what you're describing is what I do every day and what I work with every day. It's the same thing, whether you're, selling a $500,000 software package to a company, or working with Joe and Susie homeowner on their home and auto and life insurance. It's same thing.
Incredibly well said. Well, Matt, I gotta say, man, this has been a really, really good time. It's been great to catch up. I think we're gonna have to make this an annual visit and pontificate. Maybe next time we'll invite Scott to join us, and we'll kick around.
We'll debate it.
Matt, just one more time, just tell everyone, where can they find you if they're interested in you and in your organization?
Sure.
Where can they go to get more information?
Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find my profile if you do a quick search on LinkedIn, Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance Director of Sales. So I'd love to build the network, and I'm always happy to talk with any and all salespeople. When we were sitting in 10th grade English class, Chris, I know we didn't think this was what we'd be doing for a living, but it's amazing how both of us, and Scott as well, and some of the other people we've known, how we've gravitated to the sales world and found a home here.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Well, and as we like to say, to sell is to serve, and we are most fulfilled when serving other people. So, I do think it's a very natural fit. So, Matt, you know that I respected the heck out of you on the basketball court when we were in high school, and I have to say, I think I might respect you even more in the court of life and the court of our selling profession. So it's really been a treat to reconnect with you and have you on this humble little program that I run. Thank you so much for your time, and folks, and Hitesh has shared his feedback. Couldn't agree more. Hitesh and anybody else who hung around, thanks so much for joining. If you're catching the recording, thanks as well for hanging around. If you like these, I encourage you to follow the hashtag Tech Sales Advice. I try to do this every Monday at noon Eastern. Matt Ondrof with the Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance Company. And I assume you're always looking for sales professionals, right? You're probably always hiring, right?
Always trying to grow the team, for sure.
Excellent. Well, Matt, I wish you the best of the rest of the year, and let's reconnect sooner than later and do this again.
You got it. Thanks for having me,
All
Chris.
right.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hang around just for a minute. I'm going to give you a parting gift. To everybody else, thanks so much. We'll